about you is that you have ambition to be great. My job is to coach you to get all that greatness out of you.
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw. Blitz coming. They get to him. No, he takes off running. And he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jalen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we dive Fin Too Deep with your host, myself, Reason, and of course, to the, I guess, right of me, but left of me, Neal Driscoll. Neal, it's been a wild week as we basically are ramping up heading into the tampering period. It's been real crazy. Moves are happening, guys going off the market being franchise tagged, but guys coming onto the market potentially being traded for or going to be outright released. What a wild time leading up to the tampering window. We thought the fun was going to start next week, Neal, but seems like we were sadly mistaken, my friend.
Right. First, congrats, man, to us. 25 episodes, right? Like, it's been a fun journey so far, man. The first of many, but we hit that first milestone. So nothing but good stuff there. But yeah, man, I think every year what happens is the franchise tag gets in the way. There's this awesome free agency board and, we see names tagged, Chris Godwin, Devontae Adams. But the cool thing about all of it is just the amount of talent that's still available after all of that, right? And some recent releases like Bobby Wagner have, made the free agency just as plentiful as it was before. So with the Dolphins right now, I think having second or third most cap space in the NFL, with many moves to come to get more and more cap space coming, releases, restructures, who knows, maybe even some surprising trades. But the Dolphins, they're going to be aggressive. They're poised to add a few good players to this team. And, we all know the names are being associated with. It's so fun because I do it myself. Every time someone's cut, I already think about what would they look like in the aqua and orange? Do they fit, and every time, but the good news is, we talked about this when the season ended. If we can add 3 or 4 quality starters in free agency,
let's go,
and then having a successful draft piggybacking off of that, that's where you win. So I think that, I'm really excited. This is my second favorite part of the year. My favorite's the NFL draft, but sure. The Dolphins are good in free agency because they always got cap space, it feels like, and they're going to spend.
Well, it's also our favorite time of the year because we're Dolphin fans and 'tis the season of hope.
Right.
Is the off season, right? This is our season. This is our regular season, right? This
Absolutely.
is where we can actually win or think we win. And then obviously never translates to enough wins on the field to where we've lifted a Lombardi in recent decades. So, all right. Before we do get into everything though, I know the draft's coming up, and shout out to Watch Mister for that donation. He said Bobby Wagner to Miami season. Okay, so we talked about 4 potential starters, but now we're getting into the areas where guys could be pricing themselves out, and the money we thought we could allocate to 4 could be allocated to 5 or 6 instead. It's all about being smart with your money, because especially with talking about the draft, the key thing about heading up to the draft is fill as many needs as you can in free agency so you can be flexible in the draft. At 29, you could take a weapon. God forbid you could take a Breece Hall if you've plugged enough of your holes, right? It's all about, I've been stressing it, since I started my channel, on our podcast, on my podcast with Richard Webb, it doesn't matter where. I always stress it. Executing properly in free agency allows you to be flexible in the draft, especially now we're in a defense where really, if you look at the holes, we're going to have edge rusher hole potentially with Ogbah gone. We're going to obviously still have a need on an interior linebacker. And like I've been telling everyone, I've been trying to, this is a pretty good edge class. We didn't all think we were going to have to be getting knee deep in the edge prospects, but we very well could be. And there's a lot of guys in the mid rounds, me and you have talked about privately, et cetera, that could be potential options here. But just in the draft, what do you want them to take care of most in free agency to allow them to fill the needs, which needs you want in the draft?
Well, they verbally have committed to Tua Tagovailoa, so I want to see them put it in action, right? So what I want to see them do, and not to ignore any of the holes on the defensive side of the ball, but I want to see them build the line and get another weapon. That's what I want to see most.
Yeah.
I think that what we got to figure out what we have at quarterback. If he's the franchise guy, you got to commit to building what he needs and go out and get 2 linemen, get another receiver. So I want to see them do that. And then I want to see us in the draft have the flexibility to say, you know what, we don't have any really needs on the offensive side of the ball outside of running back. And we know we need an edge rusher and we know we need a linebacker. We can find those guys. They're 2 really deep positions in the draft, right? You can the end of round 3 find guys like Channing Tindall, Damone Clark, Leo Chanel that are instant starters on this team. So I think that
he's talking about linebackers for all of you people.
For some of the linebackers and the edge group
class is sneaky good too, my friend.
Right, you're right. So I think that I'll say this: I'm pretty confident the Emmanuel Ogbah ship has sailed in Miami. He's going to price himself out.
Yeah.
So I want the splash free agency names in the offensive line. I want Tua to have an army, a wall in front of him, and I think that that's really necessary. And it's paramount that to get the most dangerous Jalen Waddle, you got to take some of the burden off of his shoulders, and you got to go get a guy who's just as dangerous opposite of him. And I know we all know it's like one of the most popular names out there is Allen Robinson, and I don't know what his price tag is going to be, but there are other names out there that could be attractive. We were in Twitter Spaces before we jumped in here, right? Christian Kirk was a name that I haven't really heard linked to the Dolphins.
Shout out to my boy Martin, and you know who Martin is, Neal. We've done stuff with him from the get-go. That's one of the names he's actually talked about. And another name to talk about is DJ Shark. Right?
For sure.
Juju. What if they circle back to Juju this year?
Love Juju. Yeah, love him. I love Juju because he fits that mold, and so does Christian Kirk, of that tough guy who's willing to block down the field. Christian Kirk.
Don't be the team that overpays for like a guy like Cedric Wilson. That's all I'm asking.
I don't want that either. I want someone who's established. So and like people forget, Juju Smith's 26 years old, been to a couple Pro Bowls. He's a physical slot guy. Yeah. Like he's a really, really good fit here. And he won't, and he'll cost you $8 to $10 million a year.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I really wanted Michael Gallup. Seeing him get signed for that $7.5 million. Yes, like, oh man, that $7.5 million was right up the alley. Like, that's why. Here's the thing: I don't want them to get into a bidding war for any players out here because it'll take them out of the market for another player. What I mean by that is if you get in a bidding war for Terron Armstead, it's going to take you out of the market for Amari Cooper. If you're getting in a bidding war for Amari Cooper, it's going to take you out of the market potentially for Terron Armstead. It's just going to drive the price up, right? So and the more we sit back and think about it, because me and you, when we did our mock free agency last week on Fin Too Deep, we played with the money. And as much as Dolphins Twitter wants to sign every Pro Bowl and All Pro that hits the market, you can't do it. And we even did that with Restructuring X and Byron Jones and a bunch of cuts, right? Like over 20 million in cuts. And still, after you bring certain guys back, the money becomes a little hard to play with. And I'm actually going to be doing a mock free agency on Friday night on Finside the NFL tomorrow night, just to an updated one because ours has changed since last week with all the movement going on.
Oh, absolutely.
But let's start off. Let's get into this. And let's start off with the Amari Cooper situation being potentially watched closely. And let's play this clip from Cameron Wolfe. And not only that, he's got a couple other names in there that me and you have been actually talking about for quite some time are mentioned in this. So let's play this clip and then let's talk about it.
Ball in Miami fun again. That's the plan for this offseason. They've doubled down, like you mentioned, on quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. And the plan has been, how can we build the pieces around him to make that bottom third offense increase? And Jane just mentioned Amari Cooper. That's a name I'm told the Dolphins are watching closely. If he ends up being released, I expect them to be in the market for him. They do want another playmaker opposite Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki, who they just re-signed. Mike Gesicki is essentially a slot receiver in their offense, only playing 18% of his snaps from the tight end spot, lowest in the league. But they want to get as many weapons for Tua as possible. The top priority overall, however, is that offensive line. I'm expecting them to target multiple starters at the position, really from guard to tackle to center. And I'll give you a few names that I've heard to watch. Teron Armstead, he's a guy who's probably going to be a top tackle on the market. They're going to be interested in him. They won't be alone. Carolina, New Orleans, also interested in him. At guard, Laken Tomlinson, a guy that Mike McDaniel, the new head coach, knows well from San Fran. And center, Ryan Jensen, a tough guy in the anchor. Those are three guys to watch for Miami as they try to rebuild that offensive line.
So, all right, a lot to dissect there. Let's start at the top here, Neal. Let's start with the first name, okay? Because I actually do want to talk about Gesicki in this with you for a sec. So let's start. Sure. Let's go chronologically in this. Amari Cooper. So they're reportedly watching the situation closely. Notice how he did make sure to say if he gets released, because I know you saw word on the street yesterday was the Cowboys are listening if you want to trade before the guaranteed money hits in on this $20 million deal, right? What are your thoughts on Amari Cooper? I think he's in. Shout out to Gilbert Martinez for the $9.99 donation. What do you think about Amari Cooper? I mean, we both can probably agree he's one of the best route runners in the NFL. He adds a vertical threat we currently don't have. You know, my thing is, I would be comfortable with paying him $15 million
for sure.
But if he hits the open market, am I the only one who sees him getting like 18?
Well, here's the beautiful thing. Like, you know, we all think, you know, the league year starts next week, but the NFL offseason really has started. Teams are already talking, the tampering's going on. You know, people aren't trying to get caught, but players that get released at this point can be signed to teams immediately, right?
Yep.
And the Cowboys don't have a lot of leverage. They're in cap hell. They're restructuring everybody to bring back Dalton Schultz and sign Michael Gallup. They're not going to really get anything, I don't think, from in terms of draft capital for Amari Cooper. And when somebody of the caliber of Amari Cooper becomes available, the first thing I want to do is find the synergies. Where are the connections, right? We know that Tua never played with Amari Cooper, but that the Alabama football program has a special bond, especially with the wide receivers, right? Jalen Waddle and Amari Cooper are tight. Like, you know, that's one of his mentors. I don't think you could find a better fit for this offense than Amari Cooper. And we need a receiver that has that size. You know, you and I both have talked about that. But the fact that he's such a lethal route runner,
legit X. We need a legit X receiver. Right?
And he's a good, impactful receiver at all phases of the football field.
Agreed.
He's a savvy veteran that we need. Even a guy like Jalen Waddle, with like a coach with Wes Welker, I mean, that is a learning curve for Jalen Waddle that he can kind of accelerate there. I love Amari Cooper so much. And the beauty of getting him in before free agency really kicks off is not only have you hit one of your priorities, which is getting a weapon outside of Waddle, but then you know more what your money looks like to go fix that offensive line and what other players you need to release and maybe where you need to do a restructure. You could actually fill a couple of your holes before the big money even catches. Because I'm with you. You want to get the deal done before Tuesday or Wednesday because, look, there's a lot of teams that need wide receivers. Jacksonville has a lot.
The
Patriots need them. And Amari Cooper, you know, he is from the Miami area.
Bring him home.
And we can say that about a lot of players, but like that stuff matters to some people. And, you know, Amari Cooper, getting him after getting released from Dallas, you're going to get a pissed off dude that wants to show that he's still the man. That is exactly what we need. Amari Cooper is the number one guy that I want in free agency.
Just don't rock that 19. I ain't trying to see that 19 number. Let's find a new number, baby.
Do you know what he was at Bama?
I'll
look it up. I'll look it up. I don't know. I want to see if you have. Oh, he was number 9.
He was 9.
Yeah.
So just knock him down to 9. Let's go.
Yeah, who was that? Was that Mike Pilardi or something on our team? Pilardi, get the hell out of here. Let's go. Let's get Cooper in.
He's leaving anyways because the Matariza train is arriving, my friend. But the left leg of God.
God, man, if you think about this, and because I think we agree that Parker's staying, right?
Yeah, he is.
And if we say that the four horsemen of our wide receiver core are Jalen Waddle, Amari Cooper, Devontae Parker, and Lynn Bowden, and then you go find a guy in the 4th round of the draft to kind of even it out, and go get Matt Collins back on a
And
good
I
deal.
want Lynn Bowden to be the number 3. I want Devontae Parker to be leaned on like he's the number 4. I
Like
don't
a
want you
red zone
to.
guy.
Well,
Yeah.
not only just that, I want you to be preparing with those top 3. Like he's not going to be a factor. Like injury's going to take over at some point in the season. I don't want to be leaning on him
Yeah, I hear you.
whatsoever. I want him to be treated like a number 4. I want him to be locked in. I want him to understand his role, that you got to earn your way back to 3 and you earn your way back to 1 to 2 and then eventually to 1. You got to earn that. That ain't being given to you right now.
But look, if you say who's the top receiver available in free agency after all the tags, is it Allen Robinson?
It's Amari and Allen Robinson.
Well, yeah, I think Amari is just I love Allen Robinson, and I would not be upset if he was. I would love him. I just think Amari Cooper.
Devontae Parker wishes he was Allen Robinson. Let's say that.
No,
and I got to say this. The quarterback situation was very bad in Chicago. The numbers this guy's put up with Bortles and Mitch Trubisky
is amazing.
What do you think he could do with Tua, who, let's call a spade, has a higher ceiling than both those guys as a passer?
Well, and he's a Penn State guy too, so got a lot of love for him. You know, I like Allen Robinson a lot, but I think that's actually where they need to make the splash. And I love the draft class. So the more and more I think about it, though, and the more and more I look at it, like
Jameson Williams going to be there at 29, I think, bro.
God, if he was, I would still draft him. I'd still draft him.
I think that ACL tear is good. I don't think he's going to. You see a team, because me and you were talking about like our boards. I think me and you had like 22 or 24 first round grades, like something like around in that area. So we got to think those teams out there must have something similar to that. So there's going to be 20 guys with first round grades ahead of them probably that don't have that injury concern, because you're probably not going to see him till like 6 to 8 games into the season.
Right. Yeah. And I like that's
like you stash him, like you would be signing Cooper and stashing Jameson.
Yeah, and if you muddy the waters the right way, I mean, and you weather the storm the first half of the season, I mean, if you
and then Devontae leaves after this year, and Jameson steps in. Devontae leaves and Jameson steps in now, and him and Bowden are your 3 and 4 behind Waddle and Amari. Rock it out.
Sure, but yeah, Amari Cooper, sign me up. That's the guy I want more than anyone. And the whole
I want Treylon. I would love to see Treylon in this offense, bro.
For sure.
I think Treylon and Drake are the 1 and 2. Everyone knows I'm a Drake London stan. You know that. I think those guys would be dynamic. But I think if Jameson didn't have the ACL injury, he'd be vying for 2 or 1 in my.
Yeah, he's my 1, and I got.
Yeah, and you didn't even knock him down. That's big.
Yeah.
That tells you how much you think of him, right?
Yeah, I have him just a hair behind what I had Jalen Waddle at last year. That's how good I think he is. So, I'm a big fan. But yeah, look, I love these Bama guys, man. Like I'm cool with
even Michi. I got Michi outside of my top 5. Actually, he's like I got him at like 11.
Yeah, he's my.
But
10.
that's because I keep telling people that's because there's 10 guys before him. Everyone is like a hair above each other on my rankings. It's like I looked at my list. I think we were talking about this, right? I said there's like 12 guys, 13 guys where I'd be really okay with them taking at some point in the draft. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, it's deep. I mean, and there's like guys that you could probably get in the 5th round, like a guy like Danny Gray from SMU, who's fast as hell. I mean, there's just a lot of good receivers. I mean, I think whether they sign them, they're still going to get 1 in the draft at some point.
Yeah. All right. So the next part of that little clip was talking about Gesicki, and I wanted to ask you about the franchise tag quick, because me and you had a little conversation. There's some information passed amongst us. You want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, sure, man. 100%. You know, I was definitely told kind of off the record that the Gesicki situation is going to get interesting because he does plan to file a grievance. Because it's a difference of $8 million a year to get the wide receiver tag versus the tight end tag. And, you know, you can't blame the guy because of the statistics of where he lined actually supports his argument. To be honest, I don't think he'll win the grievance. I hope that it doesn't cause bad blood or friction, because I think Mike Gesicki at $10.9 million a year is actually a really good bargain with the franchise tag. But, you know, I was kind of told that don't get too settled in, that there's still room for a divorce to happen there. And that if he for somehow did get his wish in the grievance and got the $18 million, that the Dolphins would either rescind the tag or trade him.
Yeah. And I keep telling people it's not about getting that $18 million tag. It's about getting out of the tight end tag because he knows he can make 13 or 14 million on the open market, right? And it's about getting paid and taking care of that guaranteed money. And we know they hate playing on these franchise tags. Shout out to homie EM Dolphin fan. He says, salute, gentlemen. Salute to you, EM. So, I was trying to prep my viewers and everyone on even Twitter that the grievance is the case and everyone came, Neal. I know you saw it with the Jimmy Graham stuff, but if you look at Jimmy Graham, 67% of his overall snaps were in the slot or on the boundary. Gesicki, 85% of his overall snap. And guess what? In passing situations, only in line 7.4%. Did you see that stat out there? Cooper Kupp played in line in more tight formations this year. He played at like 22% compared to 17% for Mike Gesicki. Cooper Kupp, bro.
Yeah, I if he gets the $18 million, I'm out on Mike Gesicki completely, without question. And
I'm buying Amari Cooper. Hello.
Yeah, and I like Mike Gesicki. I think this is a prove-it year for Mike Gesicki. I have seen him flirt with being a elite pass catcher as a tight end, but we know there's limitations there. I think that the Dolphins are wise by tagging him because he hasn't earned that contract yet. Yeah, if they were committed to him, they'd be paying him $14 million a year on a 5-year deal right now. Yeah. They want to see more too. And look, I'll be honest, I have no idea which way it's going to go. I just have a funny feeling though that actually that because it's the Dolphins, it's going to be the outlier where Mike Gesicki might actually get his way because 85% is a big number, right, man? When I got an 85% on a test, man, I was pretty happy, right? So if he gets 85% of his snaps on the outside, I mean, and he wins that grievance, like the Dolphins either have to trade him with the tag, or they have
give him what he wants, or give him what he wants,
or they have to completely rescind and let him hit free agency. And the thing that sucks about losing Ogbah and Gesicki this offseason
for nothing
is that they're not going to get any compensatory picks because they're going to spend. Like if this was a year where the Dolphins didn't have a lot of cap and Gesicki and Ogbah walk, next year you're getting 2 additional third-round picks. But if we go out and sign a Terran Armstead, now here's one thing that's really cool, reason is that if they signed Amari Cooper because he was released, he does not count against their compensatory pick formula, and neither would Bobby Wagner.
Well, that's good.
So like that's another reason why signing those players is very interesting because you could spend a lot of money and not hurt your chances. But like, I don't want them to be.
And trading for La'el Collins wouldn't hurt that either, bro.
Well, like think about this, right? We know what their cap space is. So say it's in a perfect world, they trade for La'el Collins and they sign Amari Cooper and Bobby Wagner. Like I'm just saying this, and I know that everyone's probably getting excited. I'm just making a point. The fact that they could get those 3 players and it would have 0 impact on their compensatory pick formula for next year, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, the last part of that clip. 2 guys me and you have been, well, 1 guy especially, but Terran Armstead, we've been talking about for quite some time. But Ryan Jensen, me and you have been talking about. We've done 25 episodes. How many of those episodes we talked about Ryan Jensen at one point,
the last
right?
8 or 9, right? For real.
Well, no, bro. We're talking like we're going back 12 all season. We were like, yo, we need this guy, right? And
if you remember this, Ryan Jensen was on the Baltimore Ravens when Kiko Alonso took that cheap shot at Joe Flacco. I was there at the game with my wife. And Ndamukong Suh came over to lay down the fight, and he legitimately threw Ryan Jensen around like he was nothing. And I was shocked because I knew Suh was a machine, a monster. But then Jensen left Baltimore, went to Tampa Bay, and he's elevated himself to be probably a top 3 center in football right now, no matter how you slice it. I don't know. Did he win the All-Pro this year? If not, I know he was like the runner-up. But like Ryan Jensen's a guy, all 3 of those guys would be welcome additions to our team. I think it's likely we're definitely going to get one of the 3. I have a feeling we're going to get 2
James
of the
Daniels.
3.
We're going to get James Daniels. I got a feeling that's who's coming here.
Yeah, he's been around. We've talked about him on a lot of episodes, but see, like Ryan Jensen is a guy that he plays with the mean streak up front. He's nasty. I think
high IQ. And I don't know if you looked into Tampa because I was watching a lot of the film because I was chopping up for like Fournette and stuff this year, right? On my big board video. for free agent targets, and they actually started implementing. They ran like 22% of their runs were outside zone this year. Like they actually started implementing more outside zone concepts this year. So he's played in a system where, yes, they play a lot of gap, but they play quite a bit of zone, and they implemented outside zone heavily this year. So it'll be some comfortability for him there too.
Well, when you think of longevity, I think Laken Tomlinson probably has the largest window of good football left in him. I mean, he's a young guy. Things started off slowly for him in Detroit. Obviously he was a Pro Bowler last year.
James
Familiar with
Daniels like 24 though.
Who is it? Oh, yeah, James Daniels young. Yeah. I was talking about those big three we just mentioned.
Yeah. No, Laken, isn't he like 29, right? He's like 28 or 29.
I mean, it just depends on how you want to spend the money. But, I have injury concerns about Terran Armstead. But with that said,
obviously, yeah,
when healthy,
he's
there's
ridiculous.
not 5 left tackles in football better than him.
Yeah. He's ridiculous.
He's ridiculous. He's
a dominant run blocker.
Yeah,
he's a great pass blocker. Me and EM, actually, he's in the comments. We were talking about, say, people actually underrate how athletic he is. The guy's a borderline freak, right? I said it in my big board that I called him freakishly athletic. Like, people forget about that aspect, and he's never had a season where he's allowed more than 4 sacks in a season.
Well, one thing I want to keep in mind, another guy that I think it was Barry Jackson kind of alluded to, and we've talked about this guy too, Reason, was Brian Allen from the Rams at center. He's a guy that he's
on my mock free agency last week, remember?
Yep. I think I don't know how Barry said it, but it was one of the things that, like, he's on the radar kind of
thing. Because he makes sense. He's played in the zone, in the outside zone blocking scheme, and if you look, comes from McVay, and he's young. He's super young right now, and you could probably get him for a good price, like $6-7 million a year. That's why I had him on there.
I'll say this: 1 year, like, I like going youthful too, but the reason I like guys like Cooper and Armstead and these guys that are a little older is because I think this team needs some of that veteran leadership.
Yeah, especially on the offensive line, bro.
Right. So I'm okay drafting a guy who's 28, 29, 30 this year, where maybe they only have 3 or 5. We all know this: the salary cap is a myth, right? It's all about the guaranteed money. So the Dolphins do as good of a job as anyone in football at front-loading contracts. So you pay the guaranteed money up front, and then you can cut them with little penalty at the end. So, like, when you sign these deals, I don't care if it's a 5-year or 4-year contract. A lot of these GMs and these front offices are thinking about 2 or 3 years down the road. What's my angle of getting out of this deal? So, like, the big money that we see on the screen, like 5 years, $200 million, all that stuff doesn't matter. It's really that guaranteed money where you want to focus. And, like, we know, I mean, we've seen a crazy week with Russell Wilson getting traded to the Broncos, Carson Wentz to the Commanders. We have Aaron Rodgers getting $48 million guaranteed.
And now, did you see Minnesota's open to trading a bunch of people, including like Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen right now?
Yeah, well, and one little tidbit that I'll share again also is that if things go well tomorrow, before the start of free agency, the Carolina Panthers are going to have a new quarterback too. I think they already have the parameters of the deal done for Deshaun Watson. If he gets good news,
bro, we've done so many shows together, and we've had so many. Have I not been saying Carolina the whole freaking time?
Yeah, you have.
I've been dug in that. Don't sleep. Don't sleep.
I think them and the Dolphins were the 2 teams.
Oh, yeah. But I knew they were going to stick it out. We weren't going to stick it out.
Yeah. And so, like, look, that's a big move for them. But, like, that's why, man, like, the other night, I've been working on my mock draft. I put so many hours into that bad boy. Russell Wilson gets traded. The Commanders, sorry about that, get Carson Wentz. Khalil Mack gets traded. It's all for nothing. Can't do a mock until the first couple weeks of free agency are done.
Bro, the Commanders should still take Sam Howell in the second.
Yeah. Oh my God. My buddy at work is a Commanders fan, and he was not happy about
what a terrible name.
Yeah,
could have gone Red Wolves. Could have done. And I actually watched a documentary on YouTube about how Native Americans are actually approved and voted on the Redskins name and all this kind of jazz, and how like they actually don't find it offensive, but that 2021 cancel culture, right? 2022.
Yeah, man, you wear your scars, man. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So, like, hey, but I hear you, man. It's nuts. I mean, I just was talking to someone the other day, and I just realized that it's not going to be the Cleveland Indians in baseball this year.
Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous. Wow. Okay, so according to Schultz report, on Twitter. A massive market is developing for former Seahawks All-Pro linebacker Bobby Wagner. Sources say Dolphins, Ravens, Chargers, Broncos, and Rams and Cardinals, Niners and Cowboys. Dan Quinn loves them, but they're short on catch. Are all quote unquote very interested in Bobby Wagner. So again, obviously a robust market. I know when we were talking about Cam Wolf, when we listened to the space today, he actually talked about Bobby Wagner, and he said there was some real interest. What were your, obviously Bobby Wagner would change the dynamic of this defense. And dude, I mean, you look at this guy. I mean, I don't care if he's 31, Neal. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's coming off of a fantastic season. I think he had he had like 118 tackles this year and 48 assists.
I mean, man, like it's crazy. Bobby Wagner to me is I'm thinking, because I know there's Patrick Willis and Luke Kuechly. I think Bobby Wagner is the best linebacker since Ray Lewis in the NFL. I think he's a young 31. I think he has 4 or 5 really good years of football ahead of him. I have no idea what the price tag for him is, but I will say this, just like I said about Amari Cooper. The beauty here is that it doesn't hit your compensatory formula. You can spend before free agency starts to know where you stand. And if you tell me what I think the Dolphins' biggest need on defense is, I don't even care about Ogbah leaving. I still think that I have faith in Jalen Phillips taking the next step and Van Ginkel holding down the fort. I think their middle linebacker position has hurt this team as much as the offensive line. And that's, I'm not here to rip Landon Roberts. The guy's a warrior. But Bobby Wagner would bring a veteran leadership to this defense.
Oh, it's not even close between Rob. You don't not ripping anyone. You're just telling what it is, bro.
I mean, Bobby Wagner, I like. So if Amari Cooper's the guy I want most, Bobby Wagner's the guy I want second most. And like, we're not even talking offensive line, and it's a knee-jerk reaction for me, but I just know how good this guy would be in our defense. Like, I just know, like, as good as our defense has been with turnovers and stuff like that, like, Bobby Wagner is a leader. He's a champion. I like EM saying that, championship pedigree there. I mean, like, you're talking about a guy who is a total pro.
And Bevel's gonna say, go get that guy.
Oh, I mean, and again, like, you can do this tomorrow. You can go sign this guy today. Like, you don't have to wait. Like, I don't know if he's interested in the Dolphins. I find it very interesting, though, also, just not even, I don't know Jordan Schultz well. I've seen him with this blue check mark and all that good stuff. Look at the order he put the words. The first thing that came to mind, the first team that came to his mind was the Dolphins. Right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know how plugged in he is, but Bobby Wagner, man, is a hell of a football player.
Oh, man, he would transform our defense overnight. And like EM said, championship pedigree, but in the sense of he's, our defense, he's going to show them what it takes to take that next step. You know what I mean? Like, he's the one who can help guys like X and Byron Jones, we'll get into that in a sec, take his game to a next level, a championship type of level, man.
What does he cost? I'm trying to look this up real quick. What does he hit on the open market, like, per year? I'm just going to write highest paid linebacker in football. I need to figure this out, because if this guy's cost Darius Leonard, makes,
he's gonna cost between 14 to 16 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, and that, so, like, if you want a guy like Bobby Wagner, you're almost saying, like, hey, we're only going to sign one offensive lineman and have to get that other guy with pick 29. Like, that's a dangerous gamble. Now, the way I look at it is at pick 29, the likelihood that Zion Johnson, Kenyon Green, or Tyler Linderbaum will be there is probably high that one of those 3 guys will be there. So,
which one are you taking out of Green, Linderbaum, or Zion?
I mean, dude, I don't care about his weight. I think Tyler Linderbaum
all day, baby.
It's a top 10 player.
All day. I agree.
Yeah, I love Kenyon Green and Zion Johnson, but I think Tyler Linderbaum's the best player at his position
by a mile.
By the largest mile. The only other position that has that kind of gap is probably safety with Kyle Hamilton. But I don't know, man, because there's a lot of people that love Daxton Hill at Michigan. Yeah. So I
got Daxton in my top 50 players.
Tyler Linderbaum is light, meaning he's 285 pounds, but like the dude is dominant. And for him being light, go Google the YouTube, the video where he throws Tristan Wirfs around in their high school wrestling match, and Tristan Wirfs is a fucking tough giant.
Monster.
Right.
So I mean, we're very interested in Bobby Wagner, but I agree with you 100%. You know, you got to be careful in terms of we're getting into heavy cap guys. You know, this is what happens when you start paying superstars, right?
Well, you remember when you got your first job and you got your first paycheck and you already had bought like a video game and like all the snacks and shit, and then you looked at you're like, what happened to all my money? Like, that's how fast it goes here in free agency if you're not wise. Like, so like these guys know their cap, and like, you know, look, we're doing a show tonight where, you know, we're talking about fits for the Dolphins and where we're interested. Of course, we're going to be interested in top line players.
Do you like Jordan Hicks for maybe a bit cheaper?
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Hicks is another guy. There's Devondre Campbell. You know, he hasn't had
He's gonna be expensive.
He hasn't had the consistency of the other ones, but like, you know,
what about my boy Foye Oluwakin
from Atlanta, right?
Yeah,
I like him too. He's
young.
He's a little white, but you know, hey,
moves.
I like, and then again, we can always go to the draft, right?
Yeah,
like Devin Lloyd didn't test great. I still don't think he's there at 29, but I do think Nakobe Dean's going to be there. And again, Nakobe Dean's on my top 10 picks, top 10 players on my draft board. I know he's 235 soaking wet, but the dude has a magnet to the football. And I am a big fan. And I 100% think like the draft board at 29, based off the Dolphins' needs, falls really, really well. Like, throw on the Draft Network. That's my favorite draft simulator out there. Kyle Krabs, Joe Marino, they do a good job. Just go to the pick 29 and look.
PFN got rid of all the guys that were actually taking care of their draft simulator, and now it's you know who does a really good one too? Shout out to the homie Ryan Roberts, Rise and Draft. They have a
I haven't used it. I'll check it out. I like to mess around and see them. But yeah, like you go do
because it's all about player rankings. That's what it essentially comes down to. Who ranks players the best? Because does Draft Network, don't you still have to pay to trade?
I don't know, man, because I don't do the trades because it's too hard for me to predict. But no, I like the Draft Network, and the reason I do is because I tend to go where I trust the rankings, right? And you know, like when it comes to the draft guys, like, look, I'm a big guy. I still like Hyper and McShay. I like Matt Miller at ESPN. And then, you know, when it comes to the guys that are on Twitter that we talk to, I'm a big fan of Kyle and Joe. They're good dudes. Kyle's a fellow Finns fan. I've had great conversations with him. I just think they do a really good job scouting. And when they put their boards up, like when I hear Kyle talk about the Dolphins, there's a lot of harmony between what I think and what he thinks. And that's why, you know, I tend to gravitate to the people that think like me. So when their board falls, but like I did it last night and Drake London was on the board. And if that's the case, I mean, you're on to the podium, right?
Shout out to South Florida. Don said, thank you for a great show, guys.
Oh, awesome.
Okay. So moving on from Bobby, an interesting report that came out today, bro. And I like jumped out of my seat, and I can't believe people out here were trying to argue me when I called him Premier still. Ian Rappaport said the Cowboys are having active trade conversations centered around starting offensive tackle La'el Collins. Sources say a mainstay since 2015. Collins is due $10 million this coming year, and there is interest from other teams. My God, Neal, I hope we're another team. I talked about it on Twitter today. I remember when we were courting him as a UDFA because I believe he had legal issues coming out of LSU regarding something with his shooting and his pregnant girlfriend at the time.
Yep.
And he ended up being like cleared of all of it. But and you looked up, we remembered we sent a player down, but we didn't remember who. You looked up the player. It was what, Kelvin Shepard, you said?
Yeah, the linebacker that I think we got from Buffalo, and it was Jarvis Landry, and then another dude named Anthony Johnson, who I don't remember from
Bro,
LSU.
I was heartbroken when we lost out of that because for the price he was going to get as a UDFA, that guy was an absolute steal, first-round talent, top 15 pick. He's been a stud. He's a top 5 right tackle in the NFL right now. He's due to only make about $10 million this year, Neal. What are your look at signing a running back to that big money? Look at the ripple effect it's had on this team, right? What are your what like, I honestly think, can I be honest with you? The reason why I brought this up is I got to ask the question, who's a bigger priority to you now? Taron Armstead, who could cost north of 20 million a year, or La'el Collins, who takes care of the blind side and protects Tua at about only $10 million a year and is a top 5 at his position?
Yeah, I mean, look, when the most important position on the Dolphins offensive line, when you look at the rebuild here of the line, is right tackle. And when you look at the free agent market, like Trent Brown's been a good player, but he has injury concerns that scare me. Morgan Moses is a good, reliable player. I don't know if the Dolphins are going to kick the bucket that way. In the draft, it's not a great right tackle. Daniel Falele has some upside from Minnesota, but he's a little raw. He's got awesome size and power, but
I will not hear Abraham Lucas slander.
No, I was going to say Abraham Lucas is probably pro ready right now. But La'el Collins is is a guy that, we were there in 2015. I think we were the team that was in the running that lost to Dallas to get him. But I mean, he's an instant plug and play Pro Bowl level right tackle at $10 million a year. And again, I keep repeating myself to these things because I think they're so important. Does not interrupt your compensatory pick formula. And it's interesting that him and Amari Cooper are both Dallas Cowboys and have to shake free because of the cap. I wonder if there is a way to maybe have a trade that you work out prior to the draft. Like, you're not going to give up a first, second, or third rounder, I don't believe. But maybe there is something that you can do to bring these guys in. Because, again, the Dolphins sit at whoever you look at, about 52 to 54 million in cap space. I believe that when they make releases and restructures, they're going to be right around $75 million.
Which we think should be happening this weekend.
Yeah,
Right?
we'll hit on some of those cuts in a little bit here. But if you think about this, Amari Cooper, $15 million, right? Fair?
Yep.
Bobby Wagner, $15 million. Worst case scenario, say fair?
Yeah.
Probably high, but fair, 30. And La'el Collins is 40. You can do that and still have $35 million in cap space. So you could go do that and then go get Laken Tomlinson and then take $25 million to the draft, sign your draft class for about 10 and have $15 million in cap space. So you can go do this and really put yourself in a good position. If you listen to this right now, you're probably like, oh God, Neal and Reason are trying to get us to get everyone. We know that you can't get every player we're talking about. But when we talk about them being a fit on our team and them being available, when you look at the price and the value of this, La'el Collins might be the best target for us because of that. I mean, $10 million for a Pro Bowl right tackle at his level is an absolute steal in today's NFL.
No, I agree 110%. So, all right, I know you want to get into a couple of the cuts here, but and before we do, an interesting little thing to talk about. Remember last week I hit you up and I said I was hearing some interesting things about JC Jackson, and I let you know actually on Thursday when I got hit up, and then on Friday I put it up on my Patreon. This whole dynamic right now, Byron Jones, now clearly his agent was at play and they opted for surgery,
right,
to guarantee his money. He was only guaranteed what, 8 million or 6 million? 8 million, right?
6 million. Yep. And
6
now
million?
the injury guarantees him an extra 8.
Yeah, so now he's over 14
million guaranteed of his 17.5 million or whatever.
And there were obviously multiple people have talked about it since Indy that there's been whispers about him being floated around in trade rumors and such. How do you think this plays out right now? Clearly they are interested in JC Jackson. They haven't made a ton of progress in a new contract there. Do you think they're going to be able to move Byron Jones in his contract at all right now? Because
no,
when JC resets the market, Byron's going to be, 16 million isn't bad compared to 20 some odd.
They're going to have to give him away if they want to trade him. And if they trade him, they get $10.2 million in cap savings. So it's actually the best scenario in terms of cap savings is to trade him. But I don't even know if you're going to get a 5th round pick for him because of the injury and his age when you the way I think the JC Jackson things and Xavier Howard, I just think that's just too much of a pipe dream. I think the way JC Jackson comes here is that the Dolphins can't figure it out with Xavier Howard. And I know that's what you've been reporting. And I think you've been right when that Jabroni Ben Volin or however you say his last name has been wrong. Because there's no way that the Dolphins are going to get the value they'll get for Byron Jones. And I'm not saying to do this, but they could probably get a 2nd round pick all day for Xavier Howard right now. And if they did that and freed up about $11 million in cap space, and then they got a younger guy who's 4 or 5 years younger than JC Jackson. He's a Terp, my alma mater, so I love JC Jackson. Don't like him bad-mouthing our quarterback, though. Better watch that. But at the end of the day, the only way JC Jackson's coming here is if the Dolphins plan to move Byron Jones to safety,
They're not going to.
yeah, which they're not going to. I mean, unfortunately, the injury of Byron Jones is actually what's really concerning me right now. He's approaching 30 years old. It's not a tear, but it was an Achilles injury.
They said it was like a cleanup, right?
Yeah, it was a cleanup.
Clearly, Byron was just getting paid, bro. He's like, cut me open, dude.
I mean, look, dude, right now, come cut me open for $8 million. I'll take it, right? I got this razor blade right here. Cut me up, and it's $8 million. But I don't think J.C. Jackson's coming to Miami. I think it's going to be X and Byron Jones. I would love it. I just don't think it's going to happen. And look, I love Xavier Howard. I think the Dolphins owe him a couple bucks, throw him a couple shells. And, I think it's $3 or $4 million that get him where he wants to go. So I think they should do it. It sounds like they haven't progressed really well on those negotiations yet, which is kind of concerning because I think that's something you want to get wrapped up here before the league year begins too, because if you do get yourself in a position where it's not a marriage that's going to work, you want to be able to replace him with a J.C. Jackson.
Yeah,
and I think that you got to figure that out. I think you got to figure that out in the next couple of days. I think that and what cuts you're going to make have to be done by Saturday because you can start these discussions officially on Sunday day. You can start talking
about Monday's the legal tampering.
So at midnight, right? Midnight Sunday. So those deals come fast and furious, right? So I think that, it's going to be a really interesting dynamic to see over the next couple of days, but it's clear to me that the Dolphins have soured on Byron Jones. That's what I took out of the story is that I think it was Cameron Wolf today said that there was discussions of the Dolphins looking to trade him, that there was actually teams interested, but this cleanup, that this procedure that he had done has erased that. And it's going to be hard pressed for the Dolphins to find someone to come to the dance and make that trade now. So we'll see what happens, but it's an interesting dynamic. I mean, J.C. Jackson is my number one ranked free agent right now. So keep an eye out on him. I don't know where he'll go. The team I hope doesn't get him is the Jets or the Patriots retaining him.
Why you got to do that to me, man? All right. So let's talk about it then. Obviously everyone wants to know what the first big domino in free agency to fall for Miami is going to be. But before we talk about who we think the first big free agency domino is going to be, let's talk about those cuts for a sec. So we can agree we're going to cut Jesse Davis for about $3.6 million.
On.
Fledgulum for about 2.775.
Yep, out 2.8. Get him.
Rowe 4.5.
And people don't like this. I like Eric Rowe. I think it's Brandon.
So do I, but I want the money.
Yeah, it's Brandon Jones' position. I can't pay a third safety $4.7 million a year.
Yeah. Alan Hearns 2.5.
Gone. Gone.
Ethan Carter 2.25.
Gone.
Greg Little 1.53.
Yeah, gone.
Adam Pankey at $895,000.
No chance of making the team.
Adam Butler 4.1 million.
And it's in a popular one, but for a rotational defensive tackle, I mean, when you can go and fix your offense, you need money. I like Adam Butler a lot. He's the guy I want to cut least of this list. But I think you can get a guy in the fifth round. I think he's a guy you get in the fifth round. And I think Raekwon's going to take a step. I like Wilkins. They seem committed to keeping Wilkins here. They're already going to give him the fifth-year option, it sounds like. I think Zach Seiler we have for this year and next year under contract. I think that 4.8, you got to think about this. Cutting Eric Rowe and Adam Butler is what it costs to get you Laken Tomlinson. So backups on your defense that are contributors, not just backups. So I want to be fair, that are contributors, but then you get an all-pro starting left guard. So all those guys are gone for me.
So that clears up about $22 million right there.
Right. And you don't have to restructure anyone's deals because I do think when they agreed to a new deal with Xavier Howard, the likelihood is it's going to free $8 to $10 million because they're going to move the money to guaranteed up front in the bonus.
Yeah, if you restructure him, you get 10.1 million X, right?
Right.
My question is, does Byron Jones, with his money being guaranteed now, how does the post-June 1st trade work? Because if you were to post-June 1st trade him, you were actually going to get $14.375 million in cap space.
Yeah,
Does that change with the guarantee now?
I don't know. over the cap, hasn't updated it yet. Now, I still believe they can restructure him and move his bonuses, but that's like committing to him.
If you restructure him, you can get about 9.1 million. But if you were to be able to post June 1st trade him and you do the X, that's 24, almost 24.5 million between the two of them if you figure that out.
I don't think anything's going to happen with him. I think they're going to keep him at the contract he is, and I think this is probably going to be.
I got to see how that works. Because I was looking at his contract before the surgery came out, and the post June 1st trade, he was a $14.375 million cap saving.
Yeah, and here's another thing, like so cornerback, obviously, we're not going to put any faith in Noah Ogbah
because you don't have to be cap compliant until the beginning of the new season, until what, week 1, right?
No. It's the new league year. All the teams that are over the cap have to get under the cap by the
no. So once no. What I'm talking about is after free agency happens. Like, do you have to be cap compliant away?
Your top 51 has to be under the NFL salary cap, if I'm not mistaken.
Gotcha.
So I think by the time the new league year starts, which is Tuesday officially, every team has to be under the NFL salary cap.
If you were to listen, if that post June 1st trade still stays in place, the cap $14.375 million, and X with his restructure $10.1 million, between that and the cuts we just made, dude,
$40 million.
You would open up $46 million, about $46.5 million.
Yeah. And the cap's going to go up significantly next year. I've heard it's going to go up another $15 million next year.
And what you sign Needham for 5.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it. I think Nick Needham is the most important domino of this offseason. If Byron Jones is hurt, and think about this, the cost of Nick Needham on a second-year tender is the same as releasing Eric Rowe or Adam Butler. So that's what makes our point to release those guys even more transparent and makes more validated, because Nick Needham's going to be – he's our nickel starting corner right now as it stands. And if Byron Jones has any lingering issues, I feel comfortable with him starting on the outside. I think you got to get Nick Needham back now.
Yeah, I agree 110%. Did you bring Hollins back? Because I bring him back.
Oh, I mean, what's 1 year, $2 million for sure? Why not?
Okay. Would you bring back Smythe now that we've cut Ethan Carter? You got Hunter Long, Shaheen, and Gesicki.
I like Durham Smythe, but I'm going to let Hunter Long be that guy.
Okay, so what if you got to rescind your tag on Gesicki? Then do you sign Smythe for $4 million?
Yeah, for sure. Then I'm going Smythe.
Okay, so, all right. So in this case, does Gesicki get his grievance or no?
I think Gesicki's going to be a Dolphin.
Okay, so let's give him $11 million. Let's give Needham $5 million, and then
it's 4.2 or something.
Oh, Needham's contract?
Yeah, if he's a second-year tender. Yeah, I think it's 3.9. I think it's like 4.
Okay, so let's go $15 million between the two of them, and then 17 with Hollins. So out of the $49 million we created, we're down to 42, and our current cap right now is
54.
It's 54 million.
54, yep.
So that would take us to 96.
Right.
So that's a lot of money to play with.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The Dolphins, like, people say it's crazy to think they could go get 3 top-tier players, but it's really not.
No, it's not.
It's really not.
And I know people are asking, did Gesicki file his grievance? I don't expect it anytime until he gets back from his honeymoon.
Yeah.
So let's talk about
now,
everyone. Yeah. And sipping pina coladas, bro.
Right? Yeah, he ain't worried about it. He's a millionaire either way it comes.
Yeah, bro. His money right. Okay, so who do we think the big first domino in terms of free agent is going to be? So we're not including, trading for La'el Collins right now, or trading for Amari Cooper, but we can have Amari Cooper as a release option.
Right. Well,
La'el's clearly going to be a trade option, not a release option. So
the first domino I think is going to fall. I actually think the Dolphins are going to be one of the first teams to pull a major move, and I think it's going to be Terron Armstead. We know how bad their offensive line was. It's not just in the Dolphins community. It's in the national discussion how bad it is. People feel sorry for Tua actually in NFL circles, when you hear them discuss it, and they need to bring some credibility to that line. And if you can add a guy, I mean, this guy's a top 5 offensive lineman in football. I mean, I know he battles some injuries, but I just think that they're going to give him that $20 million price tag. I know that there's rumors that he wants more. We'll see what happens. It has to be a market. The Jags were a big player for him, but they franchise tagged Cam Robinson.
Yeah.
Right. So
Carolina obviously wants him to pair him with Moton.
But when they trade for Deshaun Watson this weekend, they're not going to have any cap space anyway, right? Like, let's be honest. The Dolphins have the most.
Well, they're going to send McCaffrey back.
Yeah, it could happen. But I just think that this makes too much sense. The Dolphins are obviously interested. And Mike McDaniel saw firsthand what getting an elite tackle just did for his offense in San Francisco when they got Trent Williams, right? Like, getting Terron Armstead there. The only thing that is like, just the only, like, if I have to think one thing negative about it is the fact that Tua's lefty. It kind of sucks that he's a left tackle, but I don't care, man, because like we need to fix the line. It wasn't like Liam Eichenberg or Austin Jackson played good football either, right? Like they were just as bad as Jesse Davis for a
and you
majority
need some kind of stability. You know what I
right.
mean? Yeah.
And I think that if you go into the season with Austin Jackson as your left guard, playing next to a guy like Terron Armstead makes him a better football player.
I hope Austin Jackson's not the left guard. Well, I think so. Here, I
give up on him, man. I think there's going to be one.
I don't think they aren't going to, but I see him being more in a swing tackle role this year than actually being a starter. So I think the first domino is going to fall for them is actually going to be Ryan Jensen because I think Terron Armstead's going to price himself out.
Okay.
I think
that's not a bad signing, right?
And the reason why I think too is because they know how crucial having that center to their system is, and they're going to walk in. They're going to be like, Dieter's not that guy.
Well, look, like, I think we give Dieter the benefit of the doubt because he's actually an adequate football player, but like he's not a solution. Like he's a good depth player, good rotational valuable guy. He can play guard, left guard. He can play center, but he's a good backup. And that's what he's paid at, $2.5 million this year. Ryan Jensen is a tone setter. You have him and Robert Hunt next to each other on your offensive line, and you're cooking with grease there, man. So I'm with you, man. That would be a great move, Ryan Jensen.
Well, think about it, right? I think Dieter, if you don't make a big splash at left guard, I think Dieter is your left guard. I think he's going to be better at that position than Austin Jackson is, bro.
I think it would be Zion Johnson.
Yeah, from Boston College.
Right.
But I'm just saying, like, that would, he can actually compete at that, and I think has a chance. Austin Jackson, I think, same thing with Eichenberg. If they hold on to Eichenberg, dude, I see all these people, how frustrated
he's going to be on the team, but backup.
Exactly. Kick him to right guard, right tackle. It's like
it's not that easy.
It's not Madden where he just added the player. This guy struggled so badly at his natural left tackle position. Now you think he's going to be able to lead with his right hand, make his first step with his right foot, and lead with the right side of his body, like no problem? Come on, man. He's not even a good enough athlete. You know what I mean?
As impressed as I was with Phillips, Waddle, and Holland, I was equally as disappointed in Eichenberg because I thought that the Notre Dame offensive line had a great pedigree when it came to the NFL. He was rock solid, 4-year starter, didn't give up many sacks, like was tough-ass dude, playing games with his eyeball like swole up in his head. And like I was shocked by how he consistently got whipped. And I do think coaching matters and you have your rookie growing pains, but I saw a lot more than that. And I mean, he was just getting dominated and like there's some level of talent there. So that's where I truly believe
but he doesn't have the anchor to kick inside. Yeah. That's the issue now.
I think between a Dieter, an Eichenberg, and an Austin Jackson, that one of those guys is going to be the weak link starting offensive lineman on this team. I just think that you can't go sign or trade and draft 4 new linemen.
Can't
you can, and Kansas
Think
City.
Of it. All I do is go and I sign Jensen. I sign Daniels or Tomlinson to play left guard. Then I go out and, I either trade for La'el Collins or I just throw the money at a Terron Armstead. And then the tackle that I don't like, let's say I throw the money at Terron Armstead, then I can take Abe Lucas at like 50.
Well, think about this. Because this is the way.
Or I can try and get Penning at like 29 after I take trade for La'el Collins, maybe,
Well, see this. I'm just going to play devil's advocate. Say you don't sign Terron Armstead, and this is the move you make. You trade for La'el Collins. You sign Tomlinson, and you sign James Daniels, and you would agree that both those are $10 million a year players, right? 8 to 10 million, but I'll go on the higher end. So for those 3 starters, you pay $30 million, right? Like Armstead alone is going to cost you 20. So if you're going to go Armstead and Lakin Tomlinson, just say you could get 3 high quality starters for the price of 2, where none of them are Armstead's level. But from right to left, you could have La'el Collins, Robert Hunt, James Daniels, Lakin Tomlinson, and obviously you're going to have a weaker player at left tackle. But
you could sign like Eric Fisher for cheap.
Yeah. I mean, or look, man, maybe they fucking could work a miracle with that Austin Jackson. I don't know. Like, he looked good 2 years ago. He looked awful last year. But maybe if he's the
I'd be more willing to try Austin Jackson at starting left tackle than Eichenberg at either starting tackle.
For sure. So, like, if you think of it in that scenario, right, like, that's a much better offensive line. Now, you didn't get the big fish in Terran Armstead, but I mean, Ryan Jensen's a top 5 center. Lakin Tomlinson's a Pro Bowl left guard. I mean, I didn't give you Jensen. Who did I did? I did. Oh, La'el Collins is a Pro Bowl level right tackle. James Daniel hasn't been a Pro Bowl center yet, but that's where his natural position. He was a good player. And Tomlinson just made the Pro Bowl at left guard. I mean, like, there's a lot of ways that this can go. And there's players that are not as good as the guys we're naming. Brian Allen, Connor Williams, Roger Saffold just got released. Ben Jones from Tennessee.
I had Brian Allen on my top, and like number 13 or 12 on my top 15 targets.
Well, and a guy that I've watched here in Baltimore that's a good player that I don't think is going to cost as much as some of these guys is Bradley Bozeman, another Bama guy. Like, he's a guy that you might cost you $7-8 million a year, but he was really good in Baltimore for a few years. So there's names out there that go beyond the big names we have. But I mean, that's going to be the fun part, man, is like that when Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport are hopping on the TV with these breaking news. I mean, that's as fun as it gets, man.
When do you foresee when do you see the first big news trickling down? Monday?
Right out of the gates, man. I mean, we'll know some stuff going on Monday. We'll hear rumors, but the NFL
legal tampering windows open Monday.
The NFL never fails to deliver. Every time we have that, dude, like 5 deals come and you're refreshing your Twitter. Twitter will probably break a couple times over the course of the day.
I'll be going live at 2 a.m. because they just like signed a whole new offensive line 2 hours into free agency.
But it's going to be, I mean, look, Cameron Wolfe has done a really good job covering the Dolphins for the NFL Network. And
ESPN.
And he just, I think he did a really good job of setting the stage for what the Dolphins' plans are. And, that it's the right approach. And, like, look, Emmanuel Ogbah was a good football player here for a while, 2 years, really good years. But, like, we have to sacrifice something to fix this offense, right? Because I don't want the fandom to start switching. Like, we should never let Ogbah go. You can't, like, say, build a wall for 2 and get them weapons and then complain when Emmanuel Ogbah leaves. You got to pick your poison. And, look, Emmanuel Ogbah had 2 really good years in Miami. But before that, he was a disappointment. And, it sucks, but
you knew when that Landry contract came down, it was over.
It was over. I mean, you can't pay him $17-18 million a year. You know why? Because he's not that player.
No. I'm fine with like 13 to 15 for Ogbah.
Yeah,
but once we start talking over 15, I got issues.
I'm out on him. I think he's going to be overpriced. And Drew Rosenhaus is a great agent.
If he would have given me back-to-back 12 or 13 sack seasons, cool. We would have been talking about over 15 million, but
yeah, I just don't think you can do it because you also got to think, man, you got to think ahead here, right? We're going to have to pay Wilkins. We're going to have to pay Tua if he pans out.
Van Ginkel.
All these guys, like, there's going to be a lot of money. And our window to win is kind of now. And why I say that is because our starting corners are both approaching 30 years old. And, like, this is the team that the Dolphins need to really get moving. Like, I think this year, next year is really the window for them to take that next step.
Yeah, I agree.
But, man, I can't wait for the news to start coming out midnight on a Monday morning. I think I'll be up refreshing, waiting for news to drop. Like, we'll know a lot this weekend, though. Like, it's going to be action-packed with cuts. Look, the Dolphins might make a trade. The Dolphins might sign them. Like, there's going to be a lot of stuff that could happen here in the next few days.
I'm waiting to see the cuts. I want to know the kind of money we're playing with.
Yeah, me too. I have no idea.
What I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Right
that's what
now,
I'm most interested in.
right now, though, the reality is we can get anyone we want. They have to want to come here too, but we have the money to make that happen. So Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel have alluded that they're going to be aggressive. I think they've said that verbatim. Like they
The
have a
Dolphins,
plan.
Dolphins Twitter getting impatient. They were calling for Greer when all these moves were happening because they were kind of, Twitter world was kind of shook by what Khalil Mack went for, right?
Yeah, you know what though? Like, look, think about this, right? Because everyone's like him and Joey Bosa are going to cook together, right? And Mac was hurt last year, but wasn't Robert Quinn the best player on that defense last year? Right? Didn't he have like 18 and a half sacks, 19 sacks? Like, I like Khalil Mack and he's a good football player, but like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I would have been happy giving up our second rounder for him. I really don't.
Do you expect to start hearing cuts? I expect to start hearing them
Tomorrow into Saturday.
Yeah,
Tomorrow
I
into
expect
Saturday.
to start hearing this weekend for sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But here's the thing we got to realize: the Dolphins are so far under the cap. Like a lot of teams have to start making cuts. The Dolphins don't. Like they're under the cap. They're good to go. So they can start signing people, and if they get people that they had on the radar that they didn't think then they can make other moves to kind of do that, right? Because they're allowed to be kind of dangerous. So in reality, the Dolphins don't have to cut anybody right now.
Let me ask you this. What do you expect? This is a good thing I wanted to talk about too. I forgot. What do you expect with the free agent market in regards to receivers? Remember how last year we expected it to be bloated and quick pace, and it was really slow. And then Galladay was really the one who held out for money, and like Juju only went for like $8 million per year. We got Will Fuller really cheap, but obviously not cheap by what we ended up getting for him. What do you expect the wide receiver market to be a bit more fast moving?
No, I think it's going to be slow. I think Allen Robinson will get signed pretty quick. I think Beckham probably re-signs at the Rams, and I think after that, it's going to be slow. I think you're going to get bargains more than you have to break the bank for guys. I think like Robinson probably goes day one, but after that, like a guy like Juju Smith's probably a guy who's going to make it a week maybe without even getting a contract. Like I truly believe that the market. I know there's guys like Byron Pringle out there, Cedric Wilson, like DJ Shark. I don't know, like because it's going to be interesting, and there's other priorities, and I think the market is going to be pretty slow for the receivers. I think it's going to be really slow for the running backs as usual. I think the offensive linemen are going to go fast, and I think pass rushers, like guys like Hassan Reddick, is probably going to get a deal pretty quickly. And then I'd be shocked if teams aren't already ready to break the bank for JC Jackson. 26 years old. That guy has no business being on the market. I know. As brilliant as the Patriots are, I don't understand how you let JC Jackson leave. I don't, because if you think about it, right, Devin McCourty's not getting younger. They just cut Van Noy. I mean, Hightower's a free agent. Like, they're losing a lot on that defense. And look, as a Dolphins fan, I am ecstatic that JC Jackson is going to hopefully get out of our division. Or if he stays in the division, he's wearing the colors that I'm wearing, right? But like, we'll see what happens. But like, the fact that the Patriots are going to let him go and only get a third-round pick, compensatory pick for him more than likely, to me, is probably like one of the most kind of, I guess, shocking moves of the whole free agent offseason here so far.
All right. Before we get out of here, Neal, any final thoughts, buddy?
No, man, I can't wait. A couple more sleeps till we start hearing a lot of this news, but it's going to be. I mean, like I don't see how the Dolphins don't add 3 to 4 quality starters. And when I say quality starters, I think they could add 3 to 4 players that when you head into the season are the top 10 players on their roster. They have a really young team. I think the 3 rookies, Waddle, Holland, and Phillips, are already there. I'm trying, thinking out loud. Xavier Howard's obviously there. Christian Wilkins has probably elevated his game to be there. Second half of the season, Jerome Baker maybe, but not the first half. But like Byron Jones is probably there. But like, they've kind of got a really young core, and they need some of those veteran leadership. So, when I say that, you go out and add 2 starting offensive linemen and Amari Cooper, and potentially add a linebacker. I mean, then you're cooking. You're cooking when it comes to the draft, because I think at worst you're getting a starter in the first and second round next year. So think about just adding 6 quality to high quality to potential star players to a roster that's won 19 football games over the last 2 years. I'm pretty excited about it, man. And the good news is that our boy, who's in the background right now, Tua Tagovailoa, is going to really finally get that fair shake. I think that's what we're going to get to see this year. That, the people that are anti-Tua, I hope he proves them wrong. The people that are pro-Tua, I hope he proves us right, because this is this is a season where the Miami Dolphins are at the crossroads, because the quarterback that they've wanted since Marino retired fell into their lap at 5 without them having to trade up. And it's been up and down. He's won football games. He hasn't played to the level we all anticipated. The real draft nicks that scrub the tape, that really follow this, he hasn't. But we all know he hasn't played his best football in Miami. When we see that next year, because I think we're going to see the best Tua in the pros next year, where does he fall in that chart? If he's a top 15 guy and it's bona fide, then you keep moving forward with him. He's only going to get better, right? Mm-hmm. But if he doesn't, I have to mention this because we got to cover this team objectively. If people want us, I can't just be a unicorn farting rainbows all day. If he doesn't deliver, the reason we have all that draft capital next year is because then we have a plan to go get a guy. And I don't know if it's one of the young guys in a draft. I don't know if it's traded picks for a guy like Derek Carr. I have no idea what that looks like. But this is a huge year for the Miami Dolphins with the current regime, with a new coach. They've done everything in the offseason to stand by Tua. If they back that up with the line and the receivers, they tag Gesicki. If they give him all the ingredients to make a Michelin star meal, he's got to do it. He's got to be Gordon Ramsay, right? He's got to be that guy. And I bet on him. I bet on him. I think, man, I can't wait. I can't wait to see what this team looks like next week when we're on the show. It's Christmas morning for us Dolphins fans.
Well, you're not only betting on him, you're betting on the people that you're betting on Mike McDaniel and the people that Mike McDaniel has surrounded Tua with. I hated, me, I hated the Gase. Me, I loathed the Gase and the Philbin comparisons to McDaniel. I thought they were lazy. Yeah. I thought they were awful. I thought they were terrible. But what did I say, Neal? The one Gase thing that I wanted McDaniel to show was, remember how badly Gase defended and went to bat for Ryan Tannehill?
Sure, of course he did.
Tua needed someone like that. He needed the opposite of what he was dealing with, not to be coddled, but someone to say, okay, this guy's got potential. I can make something out of him. Watch me go to work. And I've talked about this, Neal, because I know you've watched, like me, every single thing that McDaniel, every interview he's had since he's taken a bunch of little slight jabs at
for sure.
The recent regime. Did you hear when he's at the combine with Peter Schrager?
I don't know how slight they are, man. I don't know how slight they are. They're
dude. Did you hear even with Peter Schrager? He even went off about, we still think there's more explosiveness in Jalen Waddle when he gets the ball in his hands. We think there's more to explore with Jalen Waddle as a route runner. They weren't even just talking about Tua. They've been talking about other players that they feel that were underutilized by that staff, that I know I was, and you were echoing some of these players not being utilized properly by them. And this regime, you know why? Because they watched the tape, bro.
Yeah, well, here's the most important. There's 3 important ingredients that I really think are 3 of the most important things about a football team. And the Dolphins are going to be better at all of them. First, we're better coached. No doubt. The roster that we have of coaches right now is night and day better than what we had last year. Mm-hmm. I'm confident of that. Your talent, your roster. I have faith that the Dolphins are going to spend well and draft well. Mm-hmm. The talent is going to be better, because the only guy that we're losing of significance is Emmanuel Ogbah. And if we add 6 quality guys, I'm sorry, Emmanuel, you're not good enough to offset that. And then it's the quarterback position. Mm-hmm. And if the moves that we make and the coaches that the other 2 ingredients make Tua better, that is the perfect recipe to go out and win football games next year. The cool thing about this new regime, this isn't a rebuild. This is, you're taking us and doing the job the last guy couldn't.
Yeah.
We are expecting the playoffs.
You're here to get us over the hump.
Here. I don't care if Russell Wilson's in Denver. I don't care who Pittsburgh gets. At the end of the day, I believe the Dolphins are one of the 7 best teams after this offseason, and Mike McDaniel has to get this team to the playoffs. And I'm not saying he's going to get fired or anything, but that is what he's been brought in here to do. He said it himself. We're not winning 4 or 5 football games this year, right? We need 9. We need 10. We need more than 9. We need 10. We need 11. We need to get into the playoffs. And we got to see what happens next week. That's the first foundational building block to that happening. But, man, with the names we're linked to, holy shit, buckle up.
Well, and look at what we talked about last week. We didn't know we'd be this bad in with Ogbah right now. But me and you, before we recorded Fin Too Deep last week, remember we talked about how we were hearing Karlaftis might be on the board at 29 because of the rising of like Jermaine Johnson and Travon Walker and such. What if Ogbah walks, but Karlaftis falls into your lap at 29?
Dude, I would be ecstatic.
That'd be stupid.
And dude, I'm telling you a guy, and this is a Mel Kiper guy, Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State.
Yeah.
He destroyed the combine. He is a guy, you might have to take him at 29, honestly. I actually don't think the Dolphins are taking a running back in the first 2 rounds anymore. I think that it's going to be wide receiver, offensive line in round 1. And I think in round 2, it's going to be a pass rusher. And I think in
round
round
What do you think about Boy Mafe out of
yeah. I mean, I think he's a great player. I think he's going to be a better pro than he was collegiate player. He's got off the chart tools. I mean, there's guys, man. There's Majay Sanders. There's Kingsley Ignagbari from South Carolina. There's Josh Paschal from Kentucky. I mean, there's guys on the edge, man, in round 3, round 4. Cameron Thomas from San Diego State's another guy that I really like, kind of a old school throwback meat and potatoes type player, right? Like, there's good players, man. I mean, like, I know we're picking at the end of the first round, and it's not the same as having the 15th pick of the draft. I actually think in a effed up way that might benefit the Dolphins because they're not going to have to outsmart themselves. Take the best player on your board that falls. Like, if Tyler Linderbaum is there and that's who we pick, man, I'm going to pick up my cell phone and call you, and I'm going to pound a beer with you over the phone because I'm ecstatic to get Tyler Linderbaum. I'm ecstatic to get Zion Johnson. Zion Johnson is going to be a Pro Bowl guard for many years in this league. Kenyon Green
will be too.
Any of those 6-7 receivers that we've all talked about, like Nakobe Dean, like somebody is going to be there, and the Dolphins are going to get a steal because if you look at anyone's boards, right, players fall every year that don't get anticipated, right? Because now there's a different dynamic. I've heard Malik Willis is going to the top 6 picks of the draft.
I agree with that. Yeah, I figured as much.
Seattle needs a quarterback at 9. They love Matt Corral. I would never do it. They might need to do it, right? Minnesota, like they're a sleeper for a quarterback, right? Because Kirk Cousins is done after this year, right? Could they go quarterback? The Steelers need one. Like 3 or 4 quarterbacks are going to go, and that's going to push them because I don't have a quarterback in my top 30 players. I think I have Malik Willis maybe at 30. So like Kenny Pickett's probably going to go before we pick. I wouldn't take Kenny Pickett in the 3rd round.
I'm not a Pickett fan, bro. I'm not.
Yeah, I don't like him, but like that's the thing. Like good players are going to fall, and then same thing for round 2 because like you can't like there's more than 50 good players in this draft, right? So when you get to the pick number 50, if Breece Hall's on the board, that's the guy you want. Go get him.
Yeah.
But like if there's a linebacker there,
Breece is going to be gone though. By the way.
Yeah, I know, but like it's fun, man. Like.
Breece is might go top 25, top 20 after his combine, bro.
Well, you know, a cheap plug for a non-sponsor, and I should reach out to these guys because I've had good dialogue with them.
You know who reached out to me today? Actually, I got an email before we went live. Manscaped.
Oh, nice, cool.
Anyways, yeah, continue going.
Sorry, here's the thing: when I get this bad boy in the mail, the Lindy's draft guide, that's when I get my draft season vibes going, right? And that's where, like, you know, so like right now though. I'm not even worried about the draft because
got to take care of free agency first.
What we can do next week is way more impactful for this team and this franchise than what we can do at the draft. Just the amount of resources we have. So we appreciate everyone coming out and listening this week. It's going to be fun. We'll be back here next week. I have a feeling we're going to be doing a lot of the hoot and hollering, little celebrating an old school hootenanny or something because I know that we're going to do something good, man. And I really have faith. If we don't land like the players we're talking about, I'd be shocked if we don't land a couple of them. I really would be.
And guys, if you want to listen to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, iTunes, the link is in the description of every YouTube video I do. So it's in the description of this show. And obviously, if you are listening to us on Spotify or Google Play right now, go check me out on Finside the NFL at YouTube, but also leave us a 5-star review, leave us good feedback. It helps us with our friend algorithm. Appreciate you doing this tonight on Finside the NFL. We're going to be uploading this. This is going to be the episode our listeners get on our podcast. Man, a solid episode. Really enjoyed it, man. And we'll be back next week on the podcast outlets. Until then, everyone stay happy, healthy, safe, and blessed until we dive back in Fin Too Deep next week. You already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day, baby.